All right, welcome to Axis and Allies Anniversary Edition. I've set it up for the 1942 scenario, and I am going to show you some of the opening moves that I like to play. What I'm going to do with this series of video is simulate the tournament rules from this past GenCon, which switched over to Anniversary Edition. Previously, the tournament had used the 1942 second edition. Little shout out to Board Game Nation for inspiring me to try my hand at making these. So I'm going to start with the Japanese opening. Now, in terms of strategy, there's a couple things that I want to accomplish on turn one, and it's not going to really generate any additional IPCs. First of all, the only offensive unit that the Chinese have, or will ever have, is the American fighter here, the Flying Tigers in Yunnan Province. Once the Flying Tigers in Yunnan Province are eliminated, essentially China will be on the defensive for the rest of the game, and you can slowly eat them up. If you leave that fighter available for the Chinese use, then they can actually go on the offensive and potentially take some of your victory cities. While we're talking about victory cities, it's important, it's critical really to realize in the GenCon setup, tournament setup, that it's a limited time game, and you win by controlling more victory cities at the end of the time limit than your opponent. In addition, if there's a tie in terms of victory cities, it then goes to who has the more IPCs, and then that person is declared the victor. So, in terms of this Yunnan province, I do have a shot at the Flying Tigers. A good Chinese player will move this on their turn. They go at the same time as the U.S., immediately off the front lines to make sure that the Japanese cannot attack it. So I don't really care about Burma or French Indochina. Please remember too that the Chinese are territory restricted. The Chinese can never attack French Indochina, and the Chinese can never attack Burma. And that is because the Chinese can only attack territories that have their own symbol, which does include, there's an exception for Guangdong or Hong Kong, but they can also attack here and here. So the Chinese forces can never attack French Indochina or Burma. So I'm going to move 2 troops from French Indochina, Thailand, 1 troop from Burma, and I'm going to go ahead and hit it with the fighter. So we'll go out of Formosa into the C zone for 1, into Fujian for 2, and then we'll hit Yunnan for 3. So I guess just keep looking until you find a way. 1, 2, 3 into Yunnan. So I use these dice so I know which fighter has gone which distance. In terms of landing, I'm going to declare French Indochina. That's where I intend to land the 2 fighters. So I'm going to hit with 3 infantry, 2 fighters. That's a pretty heavy commitment. And I think an unusual one. Now, I'm also concerned about the UK naval presence here, the United States naval presence here. So I've got to get this UK fleet out. So we're going to move in my battleship. I'm going to move in my carrier and my 2 fighters. Not exactly an overwhelming force, but the battleship does give me a significant advantage. They only have 1 fighter. So I want to start putting pressure on that victory city of Calcutta. Now, I will do a play against the smaller American Navy at the Hawaiian Islands, but it's an interesting play because I'm going to be sending him from the Solomons, him from the Caroline Islands. This fighter is going to attack off the carrier. I'm not going to move the carrier. This fighter is going to go 1, 2, 3. He'll be landing on the carrier. And I'm also going to send this bomber. 1, 2, 3. So, coming at the American Navy with a couple C units, which I will be sure to take as hits, and then the aerial assets from the carrier and Japan. So, let's see how that works out for me. I'm going to start with the Japanese battle. So I have 3 infantry on a 1. So let's see, I got no hits. And then I have 2 fighters on a 3. So I will get 1 hit. The Americans, or in this case the Chinese, are defending with 2 infantry on 2s and their fighter on a 4. So not good for Japan. They lose 1 infantry. And I lose 2 infantry. But I want that fighter. So I'm going to roll for my 1 remaining infantry. That's a hit. I will roll for my 2 fighters. I will get 3 hits. The Chinese will defend with 1 infantry on a 2 and their fighter on a 4. And I will lose 1 more unit. I will, of course, lose the infantry. I will not take the territory. But the Flying Tigers are defeated. And that means China has lost their 1 offensive force. So we'll switch to this naval engagement. I have a battleship on a 4. Excellent roll. I have 2 fighters on a 3. And a carrier on a 1. Oh, look at that. So I get 2 hits. The UK is defending with a fighter on a 4. No hit. And the carrier and the destroyer both on 2s. So I will only take 1 hit. I will take the hit to my battleship. The UK will lose 2 units. So they're going to give up their naval assets. They could still potentially land the plane somewhere. I will go to a 2nd round of combat. Here's my battleship. It's the last hit that I need. And then here is the defending plane. So I will take a hit. So we will go plane to plane on this combat. We now have an undefended transport, which is sunk for free. Now let's see how it goes over here on the Hawaiian Islands. So I am attacking with a sub, but it's neutralized by the destroyer. So there is no surprise attack. So I will start with my sub and my destroyer, which will need 2s. Wow, that's a great roll. 2 fighters on a 3. There you go, equals out. And the bomber on a 4. So I will get a total of 3 hits. The US will defend with a destroyer and a carrier on a 2. No hits. And a fighter on a 4. So they will get 1 hit. I got 3 hits. 1, 2, 3. Those are gone. I will lose the US force here has no destroyer, so I'm going to lose my destroyer, keep the sub, because they will not be able to attack the sub on its own. Now I'll land my fighters. He's back on the carrier. I will land 1 in Kwangtung, the one that flew 1, and this one will land in French Indochina. These 2 will land back on the carrier. He is going to go for 1. He'll go 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll land him over there in Philippines. That'll give him the broadest range possible. Now I'll move to my non-combat moves. So
Now, remember, this naval force is here, so I'm going to move him 1, 2. Going to move my cruiser up 1. This is a deterrent for the American Navy. Got a sub in the way. They don't have a destroyer. So I have a nice naval consolidation here. We'll go 1, 2. Drop off an infantry and an artillery here in French Indochina to keep the British off my feet. I will send 1 unit here to Manchuria, primarily to protect that fighter. And I will place my buy, which is another transport and a destroyer up here in mainland China or mainland Japan. Here I have a fighter and 2 infantry. Now, interestingly enough, Japan did not take, nor did Japan lose any territory this round, which is not ideal, but I have a sufficient deterrent force here because the Americans can attack with 3 units plus this fighter. 1, 2. This fighter can go 1, 2, 3. Can't land anywhere, but they can bring in the bomber. So they could hit me with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units, which would be close. But if I were to win that engagement, Pacific would be empty. In the same way here, we can see I have a transport now available here. This is an undefended transport, but since the British fighter is here, he's got nowhere to land. That undefended transport should be safe. And you can see I'm setting up either to take Calcutta or potentially could make a move on Australia or Sydney, because these are both victory cities. This would be very nice to have. So that's the Japanese opening.